I'm Celeste and welcome to my channel. My channel is all about cosplay! I teach you cosplay tutorials on how to make a costume, how to do the makeup, so you can become the character. Today's video is still Ahri from League of Legends. I'm showing you how to create her top from her KDA skin. I made this outfit in a corset and shorts pattern. I decided to do it this way because I wanted to be able to use the toilet. There was also a few different ideas that I went through in my head, but ultimately it was easier and faster for me to show you how to create this having separate pieces. The idea of having separate pieces means that you can use these pieces for other costumes in the future. If you're new to my channel, make sure to click that red button down below to subscribe to my channel. This way, you'll never miss out on any future cosplays that I show you how to make. This video got really long when I was editing. Originally, I wanted to do the entire shorts and top pattern all in one video, but it ended up being over 30 minutes. So we're going to cut that in half, and this way you get this video first, and then we'll continue with the rest of the series. Make sure to leave me a comment down below if you have any questions or concerns about this tutorial or following along. I will definitely try to help you out as much as I can. This way you can have the costume of your dreams. Let's get the tutorial started! One of the reasons why I was considering this corset and pants combo was because I like the idea of being able to go to the bathroom without getting completely naked. Versus using this pattern, I would have to take off the entire romper and go to the restroom that way. And that doesn't seem that appealing to be fully naked. I already have these two patterns cut out, so I might be using these first. If I don't like how it all turns out, I can just resort to going back to my original plan, which was using Yaya Han's pattern, and I will be able to make two of these if I do it correctly to show you guys the differences. I got this shiny polyester black fabric from London last year on clearance. You can see when I got this fabric in the cards or the description box. I pinned the corset pattern to the smaller area to save space for the other pieces. I still want to be able to make the thigh highs and shorts from the same piece of fabric. Now I cut out the corset. I followed the instructions of the corset pattern. I didn't have a lot of this hollow black material left over, so I am definitely working on this piece a little bit more smart. I wasn't able to use Yaya Han's bodysuit pattern for it. Next, I'll be adding these pleather strips on the lines here to give it more emphasis. I will be adding a gold neckline, and then I will start the white top, which ends with this pin clasp that I made. It is made out of foam, painted with nail polish, painted with acrylic gold for extra shine, and finished with a sealant of Mod Podge. To attach the pleather strips, I'm using E6000. I'm only gluing it to the side seam and side back seam. I chose these seams after studying the outfit intensely. These seams and the back part have boning in them. I chose to only put boning here so I can keep the corset shape when wearing it. I don't need it to completely cinch my waist, I just need it to stay up and not fall down. When gluing the pleather, make sure to have longer strips than your corset. Once they are fully glued down, cut the excess pleather off. I decided to add another strip of pleather for added emphasis on the seams, so each seam will have two strips of pleather. I glued these next to the seam, not on top of it. This way you know that it isn't crooked. I repeated this for both sides, and then I made sure to let it dry for a long time. I got a scrap piece of chiffon I used for my Luna cosplay and cut it into a triangle to fit the center seam of the corset. I burned the edges so it wouldn't fray. Now I'm gluing a strip of pleather to the top, and then I'll glue it to the corset center. I'm going to be using the pattern I created for Lili for the white top. If you all have been keeping up with my videos, I also used this for my Kaisa cosplay. I put a link in the description for reference. I'm going to be extending the top, making it into a halter piece instead of having shoulder straps. To modify this pattern, I'm going to be using tissue paper. Here you can see I outlined it and made it thinner in the back and then extended the front down so it covers more. I'm going to be using the original bra piece to keep it the same because I still want that cup shape. I just wanted to note this is white pleather material. So of course, after I finish cutting everything out, this is what the top looks like, and I do need to go back and add a little bit of variances. So this comes too far forward in the front, and then I need to make the side part thinner. I'm going to be cutting out this fabric. It is still the gold lame that I used for my Kaisef cosplay. I'm going to be using 4-inch strips, and then I'm going to be folding it in half to add to the bodice top. Creating a straight line is easy. I measured out where it needs to be, and then I used a straight edge to draw a line, and then I cut it out. I sewed the 4-inch strip into a tube right sides together, then turn it right side out. Doing this hides the seam and creates a nice edge. Next, I grabbed a nice purple satin to make the trim. This should be the same material as your choker. I'm cutting 2 inches to make 1-inch strip when sewn into a tube. I'm still going to be sewing this to the white bodice, so it'll fall to 1/2 inch when completed. I didn't know how much trim I needed, so I made a few strips. I top stitched the edge so it will lay flat when sewing it to the top. Be careful when pinning this to your top. If possible, use sewing clips instead of pins for this part. I sewed around the breast cup area first using this purple trim. Make sure it only covers the breast cup and not the entire top. Here, I drew inside the top to make the necessary adjustments. I made the back narrower and angled the front closure. This will have to be worn first by you and then done by eyeballing. To make it symmetrical, I pinned it together on parts that were getting cut off to avoid extra holes in the garment. And then I cut off the adjustments. There are some small details in the top that make it look like it's been made with several pieces. I didn't want to create a jigsaw puzzle top, so we are going to fake it and stitch it. On the back, we are going to draw lines following the reference. There are 2 lines across the bust cup and the hanging below part. The bust cup should have lines curving in and leading outwards away from the center. This should progress to the bottom hem. You're basically making a backward C away from your cleavage area. Make sure it's symmetrical on both sides. Once you're ready, use the sewing machine to follow the lines you drew using white thread in the top and in the bobbin. After studying the in-game model a bit more, I added the purple trim to the bottom edge of the white top. I based my outfit more on the in-game reference than the music video and the wallpaper artwork. The in-game reference has a bit of detail that the others don't. I wanted my cosplay to be unique and not so cookie cutter. Feel free to put this one in or out, depending on which reference you want to follow. If you're following mine, make sure to top stitch the bottom trim so it lays flat. Because I had to cut a few strips of the gold material and sew them together, I had this nice seam after turning it into a tube. So I'm going to line up this seam and the back seam of the white top together. I'm going to be using this as a guide for making sure it's symmetrical and turning it into a halter. Once it's lined up, go ahead and sew it down to the top piece. Once you get to the breast cup area, make sure to curve it appropriately and stop right after you get to the purple area. You are finished, and then you just have to attach it together to create a halter. Make sure to try this on first and let it sit on your body, and then bring the straps around your neck and secure it with a safety pin, not a regular pin. You don't want to stab your neck. And then cut the excess fabric off. For the sleeves, I used tissue paper to draft out my pattern. Since I'm using the white pleather, I can't drape the fabric like normal fabric, so I'm going to layer the fabric instead. Using the tissue paper, I cut out elongated D shapes from large, medium, and small. I made sure that the large one can drape the way I want it first before cutting out the other sizes. You want the ends to still overlap but progress shorter on the sleeve itself. I used a large pattern as a guide for making the other patterns smaller. This is so I get the right shape I want when making things smaller. A little known secret about me is that I love using recyclable materials when patterning, such as newspaper or tissue paper. It's free, or you can get it at a very low cost price. Once you have your pieces, pin it down to your fabric, and then cut them out. Next, I'm going to slightly see how they look on top of each other. I did do a little modifications. But now we are going to put them together and with some tacky glue. Tacky glue is very strong when it comes to certain material types. For this, I just wanted to attach it very quickly and correctly. This is what it looks like when it is completed and dry. I decided to use the leftover purple material as a way to attach the sleeves to the top. There's the gold feather things that go next, but I thought the purple would be a nice way to break it up and add dimension. To attach these, I use tacky glue on top of the pleather at the very top edge. Now we are going to make those weird gold things that pop out of the middle. Using tissue paper, we're going to make a diamond. Then a single pattern to cover the diamond. It'll kind of look like a paisley. Once you're happy with what you created on tissue paper, add a few inches to the bottom to attach to the sleeves. Copy these onto a more sturdy paper, then trace them out onto foam. Cut out 4 of these paisley pieces and 3 diamonds. We're going to cut one of the diamonds in half and keep the other 2 intact. Now with all your pieces cut out, arrange one triangle in the center and then place the 2 paisley pieces on top of it, and then use a diamond to cover the last little part. This is what your pattern is going to look like, and then when you put it underneath the sleeve, it looks this pretty. Ta-da! Now it's time to make them gold! We are going to cover the foam pieces with fabric. Warm up that hot glue gun and cut out pieces of fabric larger than the shapes. It helps that the fabric is roughly the same shape as the foam piece. I have a tutorial on how to do this, but I can do it again here for quick reference. The fabric I'm using is the same gold as the top. Cut off any corners because we're going to fold the edges inward on top of the foam piece. For curved edges, make small cuts into the fabric and then glue them down individually. Make sure you know which side you are covering for which arm piece. You don't want to cover one side and then realize you covered the wrong side. Now slowly begin to glue down the edges of your fabric onto the foam. Take your time and make sure that it is fully stretched taut when you glue it down. This way you don't get any wrinkles in the fabric. Also be careful, don't burn yourself. I'll feel bad if you burn yourself. For straight lines, I just do a really long line of glue and press it down as fast as possible. Clip any extra edges. And there you go! Arrange your pieces the way it should look when it's completed. Remember that placement. Now, hot glue them down. Make sure to do this with the other sleeve part. The way I did mine was laying a diamond down first, adding a triangle, and then the 2 sides. After you finish gluing them in your arrangement, glue this to the sleeve. I'm using a line of hot glue first, and then I'm going to go back underneath it and secure it with more hot glue. The reason why we used a diamond shape for the base is so that we can make it more stable to the sleeve. I didn't get this on camera, but add a hook and eye closure to the center of your white top. Go ahead and sew your sleeves closed. Put on your semi-completed top and it should look like this. Now to finish the top, we need to attach the sleeves. Wear your sleeves and pin the gold part where you would like them to hang. I only did one side and lined it up with the other side to make it symmetrical. I hand sewed these in place. Lastly, the brooch needed some finishing pieces. I added a pointy pentagon in 2 slices from the white leather. I did the same method as the sleeves. I cut out the shape in the largest size, traced it again, cut out a smaller size, glued it together, and finally added it to the brooch. I just glued it using hot glue. Why I split this tutorial up from having the shorts included was because the shorts actually was a really long process for me to explain it. I didn't want to bore you guys with the 30-minute video versus a shorter video that could show you exactly what you need to get done. I know it might be daunting to use a pattern that is commercially bought, but they actually have sizes for you and it really helps, and that way you don't have to draft your own pattern. Drafting your own pattern can take up to an extra like 4 hours on a project, and especially if you're working on this project before a convention, like the week of a convention, it doesn't really help versus just cutting out tissue paper and then pinning it down. I highly recommend getting this pattern 5006, and no, I'm not sponsored, but it is a staple piece when I say it is used for cosplay everywhere. If you have any questions on how to do that pattern piece, let me know. When I did the white top, it was actually more of a self-drafted top, and that did take a little bit more time. I wanted to focus more on the white top because it was more detailed, and you can sew down the leather strips, but because I added boning in those spots, I didn't want to sew on top of the boning and potentially break a needle. I know following a pattern can be very scary. I did skip over the corset part a little bit, and I feel like a lot of people can really benefit from a separate pure video of me making the 506 pattern from start to finish versus focusing it entirely on this video and missing out details on the white top part. The white top part shows more than the black part, like in a lot of portrait shots. And I did want to get the detailing down as much as possible. I did have a little creative liberty with this project. I did focus more on the in-game turnarounds versus the music video and the wallpaper art. With video games, there's a lot of inconsistencies from the references to what's portrayed and what's in-game. And that's because sometimes it's easier to see something very large on a music video, but when you're in-game, everything's really small. I hope you learned something from this tutorial, and if you ever make this cosplay and use my tutorial, make sure to tag me on my social media handles at CelesteOrchid. And I will love to check out what you've made. In the meantime, check what YouTube says you should watch, or you can watch the entire Ahri playlist here. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for more awesome cosplay goodness. And remember, stay inspired and be creative, and I will see you in another video. Bye!